Right. And I think there's definitely something to that, because when we were talking in the pre-show about the jobs here that are being highlighted all the time that are left unfilled, truck driving, delivering things, right? Big things, the ferries and the garbage trucks, right? These are all jobs that pay well traditionally, but they're also not easy jobs. If you're going to work at a ferry, it kind of sucks. You're going to work down by the water. We talked about that. It's going to be cold. You're going to work early in the mornings and late at night. You're going to do a shitty job until you're able to be there long enough to start just counting people. If you are a garbage man, you're a fucking garbage man. You are literally dealing with trash all day, whether you are picking it up or you're moving it at the dump. You are literally dealing with trash all day. If you're a truck driver, same deal. You're in a fucking truck for hours or days at a time.
God, that sounds good.
For some people, it's fantastic, right? And for some people, the wage is worth it. And I have a hard time. The more people I talk to, I have a hard time not chalking it up to mentality and like where you're from. None of the three of us led particularly simple lives growing up, right? They weren't easy. They weren't hard. Everybody has you could definitely find somebody who had a harder life than either of the three of us, but they definitely weren't the easiest lives of all the people that we know. And now being an adult and growing up like that, I do not comprehend. I just really struggle to understand being in a position where I don't have a job and I won't take one because it's too hard. Not I don't have the skills, I don't have the requirements, I can't get accepted, I this. It's too hard. I'm not saying I don't believe you, because I don't know what else it would be, but I have a hard time comprehending that mentality of it's difficult. That job sucks. I don't want it. And that's what I've been hearing a lot, especially on podcasts from NPR and things like that. They're talking about, they're like, oh, well, people are just in a position now where they can decide, I don't want that job, so I'm going to find a job that I want. How long can you exist in limbo complaining about the government isn't taking care of me enough until I can find a job that I want? I don't understand. And I don't like to throw around the word privilege, or whatever the fuck, but I don't know what else to call that you're like, the government will take care of me until I can decide what job that I want, and then I'll take that one, even though there are 30 other jobs I'm going to pass up on the way there. I don't get it. The first job that I had, and I'm not trying to go on for too long or even be like, I fucking worked hard, but the first job I had was the call center. It was a terrible job, but that was the easiest job that I could get. It was down the road from my house, and I knew that I could get money, and it was paying more than minimum wage at the time. I made $10.50 when I worked at the call center, which was 50 cents more than minimum wage. Why would I not go and get that job? It sucks. Everyone tells me it sucks, but I'm going to go and do that job because I need a fucking job.
Yep. I'm going to go make some fucking money.
And I worked construction the summer before that. After that, I worked at the mattress store because it was a better job for slightly more money that wasn't at the fucking call center. You know, this is the first job that I've had at Bennick that isn't just extremely difficult. And it took me several years of working here for it to not be extremely difficult.
Yeah, it's very technically difficult, but you'll learn it. It's a learned skill.
So I feel lucky, and I have the whole time, that I got a job like this when I was that young, that I didn't have to continue to work shitty jobs until that point. And so I just don't understand the unwillingness to work a job that's difficult, even though it will fucking pay you $22 an hour. The last time I looked at being a garbage man, it paid you $20 an hour. As a starting wage, $20 an hour is pretty fucking good.
Not to mention your benefits package is probably equivalent to an extra $25 to $30.
Unions and shit. If you're working on like Bainbridge Disposal, you're working on Bainbridge Island, there's a great union that exists on Bainbridge Island. So I don't understand. I don't understand it. I don't get it, So I think there is something to your idea of soft men in hard times. Like, it's getting more and more difficult all of the time. And if you are not, as an individual, willing to do what it takes to try a little bit harder, then you are not going to succeed. And that concerns me, because the government we have, the regime that we have, is supposedly about leave nobody behind unless, you're unvaccinated. But so the cycle, I think, that you're laying out of the growing of entitlement programs and the raising of unemployment, I fear will continue to grow as more people choose to not work or are unable to, or whatever. I'm not trying to prescribe malice to it, but the longer people choose to not work, the more entitlement programs are going to become or going to be created and exist because more people are unemployed and need assistance from the government, and it will just continue to snowball from there. I'm very concerned about that,
Yeah, I think historically that's a pretty standard governmental response to numbers that they don't like. Whenever they see those, that's how we had the first Great Society.
Yeah.
That's how that whole thing came about, is to help underprivileged people and people that were going through hard times. And then, what's that old adage that there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program.
Okay.
And that's
funny.
And that's the way it goes. Every single entitlement, there's a reason they're called entitlements, because the minute you implement them, people now become entitled to those things and they hold on to that. There's a reason we still have all the entitlement programs we have now.
Right.
It's because you're entitled to that. And if the minute you say that you are entitled to a thing, you cannot turn around the next day or even a year from now or 10 years from then and say, well, you're no longer entitled to that, because as an American citizen, you were once entitled to that thing.
Right.
But now we're going to remove that entitlement from you. And that's when you get the adage of we are growing more and more into an entitlement society.
Yeah.
Where everybody is entitled to get whatever they want from the government or from the nation as a whole on a societal and governmental level. But I did want to ask you one thing, because we're talking about unemployment numbers and stuff like this. And when you look at the last 20
Completely
or
off
so
topic.
months,
We're such fucks.
no, we're fine. We're fine.
This was not the topic on the topic list for today.
But I wanted
I apologize.
No,
Obviously,
absolutely not. We're professionals. Whatever. So I'm going to direct this question at Larry first. But looking at the last 20 months, one of the hashtag COVID perks that I like to talk about a lot is the amount of, I know it's weird, the amount of people that have essentially left the workforce for whatever reason and started to get into their own gig work, self-employment type things, internet-based companies, things
eyebrows
that people
and like eyelashes and things
Etsy
like that.
shops,
Very
all
big.
sorts of stuff.
Jordan's
None of
sister
those
has that. Sorry,
No, go ahead.
The Soulful of Caves. She's doing all those markets and stuff. The open air markets and things like that are like very popular now, and they're full all the time.
So you take people like that, right? That maybe will not go back to a regular job now because maybe one person in their family has a regular gig and you got a steady income, and then the other person can make the ends meet or have the extra cash or be able to, offset the income required to maintain their standard of living by maybe taking a slight pay cut, working for themselves, making things on Etsy, doing gig work, doing whatever it is.
Cakes.
Do those people, do they become numbers in that jobless claims, in the labor force participation rate, because they are essentially non-typical, non-standard jobs? Are any of those people being factored into the numbers we're talking about now?
No, so I don't know. The labor participation rate's kind of a misnomer, right? Because like how I used to think they did it was they sent like a form or some kind of thing, or like, are you looking for a job? But I don't understand how that census approach could like capture everybody. I don't know if it's a guess.
That it's, I'm not trying to interrupt you, but I believe that the labor participation is the number of eligible adults, like eligible to work adults, and then the amount of them that are actually working.
Okay.
And so it's based off of that census data of how many people we have record of that should be able to work, minus the people who are on disability, minus this person, the people who aren't able to work.
Because they could
and
see
then the
that
amount of people who are reporting that they are employed actively.
Because they could see that through like a cross-reference
the IRS.
of through like Social Security and federal income tax payments being taken out of checks, or those
100%.
people aren't getting those things taken out of checks.
I believe
That
that's
makes
how
sense.
it's done. In which case, go ahead, Larry.
No. On top of you, so you're part right. So it's basically everyone who is working and everyone who's seeking work over basically everyone who could be working, right, in the working age. The question I always have is, how do you define actively seeking? And I think that's something that even when I was back in the econ class is like, how do you define someone who's actively seeking, right?
Yes.
And like there's no like solid program for that, but you're like 99% right. Like it's usually majority of people working, and like it's assumed like we're in a reasonable place, like we're dropping into a place that's not as good, right? I think I was in comments. I think it was when we drop under 55%. I think that's when people get worried, because like you have some people who aren't working. And so you're like, because you obviously money for tax dollars and stuff to get out. So then you start looking at that question. But yeah,